Hey, good to see you again. A warm welcome back to Heroes Behind the Badge. We tell real stories about real cops. We expose the fake news about the police, and we bring you the real truth. This podcast is brought to you by Citizens Behind the Badge, the leading voice of the American people in support of the men and women of law enforcement. You can join hundreds of thousands of your fellow Americans by going to citizensbehindthebadge.org. We're a 501c4 advocacy organization. We're in support of law enforcement. You can join us. Please check out our website at citizensbehindthebadge.org to see how you can get involved. I'm your host, Dennis Collins. I'm a proud law enforcement father. I'm a founding director of Citizens Behind the Badge. And as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Bill Erfurth and Craig Floyd. If you see a smile on Erfurth's face, you will know it's because he is still basking in the glory of his beloved Florida Panthers winning a second Stanley Cup championship. Billy, are you still smiling? Are you still happy?
I am still partying and dancing in the streets.
As well, you should. Although, unfortunately, in their celebration, as you know, they damaged the Stanley Cup. That could be costly.
That's happened every year. They just fix it right up.
They fix it right up. Bill is a decorated 26-year veteran of the Miami-Dade Police Department, now the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office. How about that? They finally have a sheriff there. And he is a founding director of Citizens Behind the Badge. As always, Bill, you always like to remind our viewers and listeners, I like the way you do this. Tell our listeners and viewers how they can support our Heroes Behind the Badge podcast.
All right. So we absolutely want everybody to watch this, of course, and go to your podcast favorite spot and be sure and like us, subscribe, or follow, whatever is asked of you there. And let's get everybody involved. That way you will be the first to know when the next show drops and is live for you to view.
So if you hear anything you like today or in any of our episodes, please subscribe, like, and follow. We would appreciate it. Craig Floyd. Craig Floyd is our founder. He is our president and CEO of Citizens Behind the Badge, but you probably know Craig best as the founder and chairman emeritus of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial and the museum in Washington, D.C. A few weeks ago, Craig was awarded the highest honor that can be earned from the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, the prestigious John Ashcroft Lifetime Achievement Award. I was proud to be in D.C. at the awarding of this, Craig. It's so well-deserved. In fact, if you haven't already heard, we did a whole episode on Craig and how the Law Enforcement Memorial became a reality. It's a fascinating story. You got to go to it. Craig, again, congratulations on the award. Congratulations for your lifetime of service to law enforcement. And let's have another good show today.
Oh, it's my personal pleasure. You know that. And it was so great to have you there for that awards ceremony. And today we have such a special guest. This is somebody who I'm being reunited with after 34 years. He was there with us, a featured speaker, when we dedicated the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. And I'm so proud that he agreed to join us here today on Heroes Behind the Badge podcast. So I'll let you do the introductions, but can't wait to get into it with him.
Let's give this gentleman a proper introduction he so richly deserves. Ed Morales Jr., a retired FBI special agent, a native of Texas, a United States Marine veteran, 2 tours in Vietnam. He joined the FBI in September of 1979. In 1985, he transferred to the Miami field office. Law enforcement family. He and his wife both served 25 years and retired from the FBI. Author of 2 books, FBI Miami Firefight, 5 Minutes That Changed the Bureau, and Hostage, co-written with his wife, Liz. And a new book coming out late this year that I hope we'll talk about during our time together, named, I think I got it right, Lalo. That was his undercover name. Shh, don't tell anybody. Secret. Compilation of undercover cases during his FBI career. As with most of our guests who have served distinguished law enforcement careers, many achievements, notable accomplishments for decades, there's one day that changes their lives forever. April 11th, 1986, 8:45 a.m. 14 FBI agents were preparing to conduct a rolling stakeout looking for two ruthless, violent criminals, bank robbers, murderers. They were called the Unknown Gang. They were running rampant up and down US 1 in South Dade County, Florida, especially on Fridays. But Morales and 7 of his fellow agents made contact with these bad guys on Southwest 82nd Avenue in Dade County, in the Dade County village of Pinecrest. What followed would be one of the most dramatic and deadly encounters in FBI history. Morales was the first agent ever to be honored with the FBI Medal of Valor on April 10th, 1990. And on October 7, 1986, the IACP Police Officer of the Year Award to Ed Morales. This story has been told many, many times, but it's important that we tell it again and ask Ed to tell it in his own words so that we never, ever, ever forget our heroes. Ed, a warm welcome to Heroes Behind the Badge. We are delighted to have you as our guest.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's a pleasure to reconnect with Craig again after 34 years.
Yes, indeed.
It's great deal.
That is great. Well, I feel a little connection. I was the general manager of 3 radio stations in Miami at the time of this incident. And I think I was telling you before we started, the news director called me into around 9 o'clock that morning. He says, "Dude, you're not going to believe what's going on down in South Dade." And of course, the scanners were all lit up with the Dade County police at that time, trying to help you guys clean up the mess, the aftermath. They got there after the fact, but it was unbelievable. It was chaos, as you know, and so I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're here to share once again this amazing story.
Thank you.
Let's turn it over to Craig. Craig, I know you guys have met each other, and there's obviously a connection. Bill Erfurth serving so many years in Miami-Dade as a police officer and lieutenant. Let's begin with Craig.
Glad when we selected the representative of law enforcement in America to speak at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial dedication, I turned to you, my friend, because I knew your story. A few years earlier, you had heroically ended what they call the bloodiest day in FBI history. And I certainly want to share that story here today with our audience. Let's start with the suspects and what led to this shootout on April 11, 1986. 2 suspects you were after, Michael Platt and William Maddox. And take it from here. Who were these people you were after, and what had they done that led to this arrest situation and ultimately the shootout?
Well, Craig, that's the interesting part about this whole about the initiation of this case. At the time, or right before the shooting, and the weeks and months previous, we had no idea who these guys were. I tell people, I said, they were ghosts. They were phantoms. They would just appear on Fridays, usually. It'd be a bunch of gunfire. Sometimes it'd be dead people. Sometimes it'd be wounded people, and they'd disappear. I mean, they really were phantoms. That's why we called them the Unknown Gang, because witnesses couldn't tell us whether they were white, black, Hispanic, or male or female, really. So up until, well, actually, it wasn't until after the shootout happened that we knew who they were. We got a lucky break about 3 weeks before the shooting. They had assaulted a a gentleman out of Hialeah, Florida, where he was out target shooting in the Everglades. They shot him and left him for dead, and they stole his black Monte Carlo. And that gentleman, Jose Collazo, was so lucky. He was shot 3 times, and he was about a mile into the Everglades, and he had a strong will to survive. He had a decision to make after they shot him. They stole his car, stole his guns, stole his wallet. Took everything from him. He had to make a choice: do I stay here and die, or do I try to do something to survive? And he decided to try to survive. So he staggered about a mile from where he was shot out to the nearest highway, and he waved down a passing vehicle, I think it was a station wagon or something, and the people in that car got him to a phone and called 911, and he ended up at Miami Hospital. So he was our first live witness. I mean, that was really the first person that saw these guys that survived. Up until that time, everybody that saw him died. So even though we had a good description of these guys, there were 2 white males, about 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2". Slender, had a military bearing, and they drove a white pickup truck. That's all the information we had up until after the gunfight. So based on the information that we had, that happened on March 12th, 1986. We started doing surveillances in South Miami, from those of you that are familiar with that area, US 1 in South Miami. And we had nothing. We had no idea, so we just said, hey, we're going to do a shotgun lead. We're going to saturate the area with officers, agents, and hopefully we'll get lucky. And as it turned out, we were lucky. One of our surveillances, the lead was to go out there and take down the license plate of any light-colored pickup truck in South Florida. So, that's how desperate we were for a lead, So, as luck would have it, John Hanlon, unbeknownst to him, had taken down a tag of a pickup truck that passed him, and that tag, and I don't recall the number off the top of my head, but it ended up being Maddox's pickup truck. So people say, well, what does that matter? Well, if we had taken the owners of the pickup truck, separated them. Okay, all the female owners, discard them. All the Black and Hispanic owners, discard them, and you're left with a pool of potential suspects. So we would have whittled down the list. We would have shown photo spreads to Mr. Collazo, and eventually we would have identified who the shooter was, who the bank robbers were. But it didn't happen that way. So, but what ended up happening was what I call intuitive policing. Our supervisor, Gordon McNeil, on April 10th, he was out at firearms training with Ben Grogan, the case agent, and he said, "Hey Ben, how about we set up a surveillance tomorrow?" And he and Ben had a conversation, and I know this because Gordon told me what happened, after the shooting. He said he and Ben discussed it, and Ben asked him, "Well, Ben, Gordon, what do you know? What's up? Do you have something I don't know about?" No. He said, number one, he said the last time they hit a bank was 3 weeks ago. Number two, when they hit the bank, they only got $8,000. Normally, they got $40,000 or $50,000. And number three,
and just to break up, how many bank robberies had they committed up to this point?
Bank and armored truck robberies. We combine them together. With evidence, we can link them to 6 confirmed robberies. Okay, but there were an additional 12 to 14 robberies that had the same MO, that had the same style of robbery. So we think they were good for anywhere from between 12 to 15 robberies in South Florida, but we could only positively link them to 6 through forensics
Right.
evidence. So Gordon told, as I was saying, Gordon told Ben, "Hey, tomorrow, the last time they hit was 3 weeks ago. The last time they hit, they only got $8,000, and tomorrow is Friday, payday Friday." Those of us old timers that know what payday Friday is, So he said, "Hey, I think they're due. I've got a hunch. I think they're going to hit tomorrow." That's how we ended up on surveillance. Just on intuitive policing. A good hunch by a good agent.
So, Ed, I want to jump in real quick and ask you something. So, the tie-in here, and you were talking about the victim that was shot out in the Everglades, and I think the timeline of that was about a month prior. But
Right.
how is that, or how is that tied in together, so that it wasn't an isolated incident, that it was just another random crime that happened in the Everglades? So, how did you tie that together at that point and think, wow, maybe these guys are our bank robbers?
Well, that's a good question, Bill. First of all, the first getaway car that they used was a I don't know how it ended up being this way, but it was a gold colored Monte Carlo. I mean, don't ask me how the Monte Carlo brand gets into there, but that car belonged to Emilio Brielle. He went to target practicing in August, September of 1985. He went to the Everglades to target practice, and he disappeared. He was never seen alive again. That was about a week after his disappearance. We started getting a rash of armored truck and bank robberies, and people would say, "Hey, the getaway car was a green car, a brown car, a gold car, a white car." So people couldn't really tell us. It's people get stressed out when people point guns in their faces, or weapons, shotgun. People are funny that way, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
So it was hard to get a good description, but it wasn't until January of 1986 that we recovered the stolen car. A witness followed the bank robbers to a Burger King in the area close to the bank that was robbed. He saw them switch from the stolen car, from the bank robbery car, to their personal car, which is a pickup truck. He tried to follow them, but they saw him, and he the bad guys got out and pointed a gun at him. So he drove back. So that was the
That was a
connection.
tie-in. Okay, got it.
Collazo had the misfortune of going to target practice in the same place where Emilio Brielle had been target practicing, and that's when he was accosted and shot and left for dead. Now that was on March 12th. On March 19th, a week after he was shot and left for dead, we had a bank robbery at Barnett Bank at 136th Street and South Dixie Highway. I think the Barnett company has been bought out by somebody else, But at the time when the bank was called Barnett Bank, there was a U.S. Customs inspector that was driving into the bank at about 9:30 in the morning to cash a check. And I make fun of people. I make fun of people, the young kids today. I have to hold up a piece of paper and say, a check used to be a monetary instrument that you had to sign to go into a bank to get your money. So he was going in to cash a check, and when he was parking, he saw two men running out of the bank with long rifles, wearing masks, and had dark clothing on, jump into a black car, back out of the parking space, and speed away. Well, when they backed up, they backed the rear end of the car towards his position. Being a law enforcement officer, a customs guy, he jotted down the tag. So we had a confirmed sighting of the black Monte Carlo that was stolen from Jose Collazo to an actual bank robbery a week later. So the customs officer said it was the tag was NTJ 891, which matched exactly to the tag that Collazo's stolen car had on it.
So one other thing I want to clear up and kind of tie in for everyone that's listening is, you mentioned that this was the same location out in the Everglades that they had gone at least for a second time when this had happened. So knowing, and we'll state this now, these guys were both in the military. They both had pretty significant military backgrounds, and they met together when they were in the military and became friends, and then ultimately came together after they were both honorably discharged. So was there some real connection as to why they would go to this location in the Everglades? Was it because they went out there and they would shoot there also, or was that ever determined?
We could never ever determine that they shot there, except for the following information. Their girlfriends, wives, whatever they had at the time that they were involved in the robberies, told us that these guys used to go shooting every week. They practiced every week. And you're from the Dade County area. I've been to the same place that Emilio Brielle and Jose Collazo used to shoot. It's out there in the Everglades off the Tamiami Trail. Between, right before you get to Chrome Avenue, Tamiami Trail, there's an area there where people shoot. It's an open area. You
Yeah.
go out there, you walk on so many shell casings. It's like walking on a brass highway, a brass sidewalk. There's so much ammo out there that's been fired. So I mean, I've actually shot at that same location.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's a common area. It's free and it's safe. There's well, I don't know. Back then there were no houses out there. I don't know what it is now, but so it was a common area. And these guys, the bank robbers, probably also went out there to practice because that's what happened when they shot and left Collazo for dead. They were out there in their pickup truck with their weapons and they were firing. They were practicing. And then somewhere along the time, a few minutes after they got there, they turned around and decided to attack Collazo. They came up behind him, pointed their weapons at him and say, "Hey, listen, give us your wallet, give us your guns, give us your, watch, whatever, and give us the keys to your car." So that's how it ended up down.
Let me jump in here, Ed, for a second to help our audience understand the depth of evil that these guys sunk to. You mentioned their girlfriends and wives. There is suspicion, I don't know that it was ever proven 100%, but there was suspicion that both Maddox's wife and Platt's wife died under mysterious circumstances. One was stabbed to death along with a researcher at a hospital, I believe, and the other was an apparent suicide, but it was never proven. And the suspicion was that Maddox and Platt may have killed their own wives. So, I mean, this is the despicable characters we're talking about that will stoop to no depths too deep to
Right.
commit evil acts.
Right,
And it's almost unbelievable to think there are people in this world that are like them in that regard. And yet you had to go up against them on April 11th, 1986. So take us back again. You're surveilling, you spot the vehicle, and all hell breaks loose. Talk us through that.
Okay. Actually, it was Ben Grogan and Jerry Dubb riding in the same unit together that spotted the car. They were at 136th Street and US 1. They were at the Barnett Bank that I mentioned before that had been robbed on March 19th. And this is speculation on our part because all four witnesses that were involved in this little incident are dead. Ben and Jerry are dead, and the two bank robbers are dead. So we can't get information. We can't interview them, but based on trying to reconstruct the event, the black Monte Carlo must have driven into the parking lot of the Barnett Bank. And at the time, on April 11th, they had a marked unit parked in front of the bank as extra security. So they probably drove in, saw the marked unit, made a circle around the parking lot and started leaving. Well, it's our speculation that Ben and or Jerry saw the black car circling around the parking lot, so they decided to follow it. And they couldn't see the tag. So they followed it north on US 1, and it wasn't until they got to about 124th Street and US 1 that they were able to catch up with it and verify that the tag on the black car was the tag from Collazo's stolen Monte Carlo. And boy, I'll tell you what, though, talk about all hell breaking loose. It's like I remember the words to this day. I mean, they're lasered into my mind. Ben Grogan called out, "Attention all units. were behind a black vehicle, two-door, Florida tag NTJ891. We're headed north on the South Dixie Highway. It's like, holy cow! I could not believe that these guys were that bold, that brazen, to be in a stolen car. They didn't even change the tags on the car, So it's kind of like, I don't know. They weren't dumb. I think they may have been just daring law enforcement to stop them. I mean, I have no idea what their real motivation was, but you have to admit, that the description of the car and the tag number had been publicized all over South Florida, from Orlando down to Key West. So I mean, they knew they were looking for the car, and here they are on a Friday morning, just driving around in a stolen car. So
Crazy.
what followed was a short surveillance that turned into a real short, high-speed chase that led to a bunch of, there were 4 units, 3 FBI cars and one the stolen Monte Carlo, ended up playing bumper cars on Southwest 82nd Avenue. So we were southbound. So there was a series of crashes and banging and rear-ending and so on and so forth, and what... as luck would have it, we ended up ramming them, or Richard Manaussi ended up ramming the stolen Monte Carlo into a driveway against some civilian cars and pinned up against a tree, and he pinned them on the left side of the stolen car. He pinned them.
This is a residential neighborhood, as I remember, right?
Correct, right. It's in front of a duplex. It wasn't
Wow.
Our best. It wasn't our choice, and I've been asking them, why did you stop them there? And I have to laugh at people. I tell people, I say, hey, how many types of car stops are there? And I get all kinds of answers: high risk, low risk, felony, non-felony. I said, no, guys, there's only 2 kinds of car stops. There's a compliant car stop, which means you pull over to the side when you get pulled over, and then there's a non-compliant car stop. Okay, where you'd say, hey, the heck with it. So
yeah, and like you have any luxury in that decision, right?
Exactly.
Bad guys don't care.
Well, the bad guys get a choice too. That people don't realize that. They get a vote too. And they said, no, we're not going to stop. So our idea was to stop them up against a cement wall, which would have been perfect because the backdrop would have been a cement wall in case there's a gunfight. But they had a choice. That they got a vote, and they said no. It turned into a non-compliant stop. So we ended up crashing in front of a duplex. I mean, with people inside. It was just one of those things. So after we crashed them, was the beginning of about a 4.5, 5-minute gunfight.
So continuing
45 rounds were fired, as I recall. Is that right?
Say that again, Craig.
145 rounds fired during this exchange?
It's an estimate between 140 and 150 rounds. And people say, well, how can that be an estimate? Well, let me give you an example. Ron Reisner, he had a 9mm pistol. He fired 15 rounds from one magazine, and he fired half of a second magazine. He fired 7 rounds. So that is 22 shell casings that should have been on the ground from his pistol alone. Okay. What happened was when after the gunfight was over, they brought in a medevac helicopter, landed right in the middle of the crime scene. And you know how helicopters are. The downdraft just blows stuff all over the place. So they only found, Ron fired 22 shots. They only found 7 of his shell casings. So there were shell casings missing all over the place, So that's why it's estimated that the rounds fired were between 140 and 150 rounds. So
there were a lot of
go ahead.
There were a lot of really unfortunate circumstances or errors that came along with this, and I think it's interesting to note for people that aren't familiar with this story is there were several different collisions along the way till you finally were able to trap their vehicle and immobilize them.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the impacts, a couple of the FBI agents' guns that were lying on the seat, they ended up going out the door, or they ended up on the floorboard, and they didn't even have access to those weapons. And so that kind of puts you guys a little bit at a disadvantage. And interestingly enough, and we're going to get into this a little bit more, as you mentioned, one of the agents had a 9mm pistol, but some of the agents were only armed with 38 revolvers or perhaps a shotgun or two. And this is an interesting thing because this was the 1980s in Miami, the infamous 1980s in Miami of the cocaine cowboy era. There were people running around, Marielito Cubans, the Colombian cartels. There were 6 to 10 murders happening every day, to the point that there were so many murders, the Dade County Medical Examiner's Office couldn't keep the bodies, and they went to the Burger King headquarters in Miami and rented out refrigeration trucks just to stack and store the dead bodies. So this is the time frame of when your incident happened, and I know that one of the bad guys had a rifle or a weapon, but your story and this situation in many ways transformed law enforcement and how they thought of arming themselves. And so let's get into that whole shootout mindset scenario. You're shooting, they're shooting. Talk about the exchange of gunfire and how you guys were in fact outgunned until finally the bad guys were killed.
You bring up, you set the stage perfectly for what happened. I've been asked that question many times. Why weren't you better armed? And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Why wasn't I better armed? So, well, you should have had better guns. I said, well, no kidding. You know, you're preaching to the choir here. But then I turn the table on them and say, okay, if you have a choice between carrying, something that you want to carry, and simply put, an unauthorized weapon, okay, are you going to carry that unauthorized weapon or unauthorized ammunition and then run the risk of being fired and or prosecuted by your agency? And they go, well, what are you talking about? I say, hey, police officers, law enforcement officers are only allowed to carry what their departments issue them. Okay, I can't run out and buy a 44 Magnum, on my own and carry it on duty. I mean, if it's not an authorized weapon, then I'm in violation of the rules and regulations. So, that kind of puts them, brings them back in line, brings them back to reality. Okay, so I have to remind people that, hey, as you said, in the 1980s, police officers, agents were the only authorized weapons we were allowed to have were 6-shot revolvers. That's it. And we weren't even allowed to carry rifles, at least in the cities. The agents out west working the reservations out in Idaho and Montana, they could carry 308 rifles. Okay, but I was allowed to carry only a shotgun. So I was armed with my shotgun and my 38 revolver. That's it. I mean, that was the order of the day. Unfortunately, we came up, and you mentioned, these guys' background. I think it may have been Craig. You cannot overlook the fact that Platt Maddox were Army trained. Okay, I mean, when you look at our military forces today, they're the best in the world. Some of the best troops in the world are the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne. Okay, and then there's Navy SEALs and Delta Forces and so on and so forth. But by and large, as a unit, the 82nd and 101st Airborne are some of the best troops in the world. They're highly trained. Okay, and all sorts of weapons, and so on and so forth. That's what these two guys, Platt and Maddox, had as background. They were 101st Airborne. Okay, now they may have only been military police in the airborne, but they were still airborne. Okay, so they were highly trained, and as we found out during the shootout, they were highly trained and heavily armed. Okay, so Platt had the 30-round magazine in an assault rifle. It's an assault style rifle, and his partner had a 12 gauge shotgun. So that rifle, it tipped the balance towards them. I mean, there were eight FBI agents against 2 bank robbers, but that rifle evened the odds because that rifle, had more rounds in one magazine. I had 6 rounds in my 6-shot revolver. Okay, so if I had to fire 30 rounds, I would have to reload 5 times to fire 30 rounds. He just had to keep pulling the trigger, firing 30 rounds. And he had, at the end of the gunfight, he had they had an evidence bag that was found in one of the cars. They had an additional 4 or 5 30-round magazines in their equipment bag. Thank God they didn't get to use those. Okay, he only fired two magazines full. He fired 60 rounds from the rifle. But that's I mean that's a lot of rounds, especially when you're on the wrong end of them, So, but no, these guys were highly trained, and heavily armed. Okay, and one of the points I like to make in my book is that there's 2 sides to survival. There's a physical side. That's the mechanics, cover, concealment, maneuver, flanking, and so on and so forth, shooting and stuff like that. The other side of survival is psychological. Okay. Do you have what it takes to survive the stress or the horror, I guess, of a gunfight? And you know what? There's an amazing amount of people that have no idea. I mean, they have no idea whether they could or couldn't do it. We as law enforcement officers train for that every day. And it's a mindset that you have to have. And these 2 guys had that mindset, okay, because they were well trained and they were well armed. Okay, so and the military bearing, I guess they had this military bearing that even Jose Collazo said, hey, they looked like they were military. They were very disciplined, very focused on things. They didn't want, their eyes didn't wander around looking for not paying attention to the topic. So they were tremendous adversaries. I mean, if you're going to run across somebody that you don't want to run. If you want to meet somebody that you don't want to meet, it's those 2 guys, okay? Highly trained, heavily armed, highly motivated guys, okay? And that's what they were.
Your point, Ed, you talk about their emotional state, their psychology of survival. They were actually hit early on in the gun battle. Is that not true? They were both wounded, and yet they somehow miraculously, revived themselves and kept shooting.
Right. The driver of the Monte Carlo, who at that time was Maddox, he was shot right away. He was shot through the wrist, the right wrist, when he was aiming his shotgun at Ben Grogan. And then right immediately after that little exchange, Gordon McNeil, the supervisor, shot him twice. Once right here in the face, okay, and once right here in the what they call the brachial plexus, the shoulder area. It severed his artery and his vein. Forget what the veins are. Not femoral.
Yeah.
The artery that controls brachial artery and the brachial vein up here, and the brachial nerve bundle. So basically, Gordon just this tool right here, this right arm, it went down. I mean, he severed it completely. But I talked to a doctor and said, "Hey, this hit on a normal person, you get shot in the face with a bullet like this, it'll knock you out. Okay, I mean, it'll knock you unconscious. Depending how long you're unconscious depends on the individual. If it was me, I'd probably be unconscious for several minutes, but he was probably unconscious for only about, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds before he regained consciousness again. And it's like, hey, he knew he would, I'm speculating, but he knew he was in trouble. He knew he had to get out of the car, and eventually he does on his own volition, his own efforts. He gets out of the stolen Monte Carlo, gets out of the car, and goes over to hide behind some of the civilian vehicles in the driveway. Okay, and eventually he makes it to Ben Grogan's car to try to escape. So yeah, they were highly motivated, absolutely. And then getting back to the Platt, he was shot. The very first hit he got was through his right arm. It severed his brachial artery, and the round hit the side of his chest, the right side of his chest. The round penetrated his right lung, and it stopped about an inch short of his heart. Excuse me. I talked to a doctor about that, and that doctor said that it was a non-survivable hit that he took, and that hit was put on him by Jerry Dove. Like the first hit he got, the first hit Platt received was a non-survivable hit. He was basically a walking dead man. Okay. Unfortunately, he survived another 2-3 minutes. And in that time frame, he kept fighting and fighting and fighting, trying to escape. And he goes on to injure more agents, and he goes on to kill Ben and Jerry, as a result of that.
So the question there would be, is there some kind of psychological thing? Was he just, or both of them rather, were they both flying high on adrenaline, and that's what kept them standing and returning fire? Or was there some kind of post-autopsy toxicology report that they were full of dope or something?
When I lecture and when I teach classes, I always tease my audience, I say, hey, you know what, though? I'm asked that same question, were they on drugs, were they on meth or coke or something? And I said, no, but they did have coffee in their system, but I said it was Colombian coffee, so.
Colombian coffee. Wow, that was the coffee of the decade there, right? With all the Colombian cartels and everything else.
I shouldn't, tease Colombia. They take too many hits as it is, because of all the drug dealers. But no, they had Danish coffee in their system. That's all they had. These guys were fitness fanatics. They were I don't know. They weren't survivalists per se, but they were survivalists before survivalist or preppers was a thing.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't go to the gym. They occasionally would jog, but they were very fit and very conscious about their wellness and the way they looked and the way they presented themselves. But getting back to the psychological side of survival, I mean, that comes from training. Okay, I mean, granted, I mean, I can't say that training is the end all to end alls, because there are some people out there that don't have any training that want have a strong will to survive. Okay, so but you combine a strong personal will to survive and couple it with training. Oh my God! I mean, you can build so many Medal of Honor winners, should have been dead, but they kept functioning and going and going and going.
Oh, Ed, let me just jump in, because when we talk about the psychology of survival and how some people have it and maybe others don't, you obviously had it yourself, because here you were severely injured. I think your non-shooting hand, your left hand, your left arm was debilitated early in the shootout. And yet somehow you survived. And as all the other agents, now we have Ben Grogan dead, Jerry Doves died. You have 4 other agents who were seriously injured by the gunfire, and yet you ended it. You found some will to survive, some ability to fire without having the other hand usable, and you ended the gun shootout. Tell us what was going through your mind at that point in time and how you ultimately ended it.
Well, I have to be honest with the listeners and the viewers. I mean, if I told you I wasn't scared, I would be a liar. So, but fear is not. I mean, fear is not. What did Churchill say? The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Okay. And you have to acknowledge fear. I mean, everybody gets fearful or apprehensive or some level of anxiety. Okay, and I started going through certain stages. I became when the surveillance started, and this attention all units were behind the stolen Monte Carlo. I got apprehensive. Okay, when we started doing the bumper cars, I became a little fearful because I'm thinking, okay, don't know how this is going to end up, or where we're going to end up. But and I was still fearful when the bullets were flying because I ended up across the street. I had to cross like 50 yards of open space to get to where the subjects were because I had a shotgun, and the effective range of a shotgun on paper might be 50 to 75 yards, but in reality, if you want to be effective against a human target, you got to be closer. So I figured, hey, I got to get closer to these guys, 25 yards, and then so I ran across the street, and the bullets are whizzing by me. I mean, it's again, Churchill said, "There's nothing more exhilarating than hearing a bullet pass you by." you know, as long as the bullet doesn't hit you, you're okay. So, but when this is a fantastic uh, event. I was shot by a 223 caliber or 5.56 caliber, 5.56 millimeter. The round hit me right here, right where my little finger is. Okay, and if you look at the way I am on the video right now, if I had not had my arm up in this position as I'm running across the street, I brought my shotgun up because I had my muzzle pointing at Gordon McNeil, my supervisor's back, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to worry about safety. So I brought the weapon up like this, and that's when I got shot. Okay, right here. So imagine if the arm hadn't been there. Okay, where would that round have hit me? It would have been a whole different, story. But not only am I lucky, I'm lucky like 8 times over, like a cat. Um, I mean, it was an amazing physiological reaction because when I took the hit, okay, the round almost ripped my forearm off my body. The only thing holding my arm to my body was this bottom section of meat, the muscles down here, and my forearm. My arm was just completely destroyed, and the only thing holding it up, holding it attached to me was this part. So here's the good part. When I took the hit, I had no idea. People have asked me, "Hey, what's it feel like to get shot?" And I look at them and I look them right in the eye and say, "I don't know." And they look at me like I've got two heads. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? I said, well, you know what? I mean, I was shot, yes, and I didn't know I was shot until several minutes after the fact that I was shot. Okay, because the human body is such a fantastic machine. Okay, I this the bullet almost ripped my hand off my body. Felt no pain, none whatsoever. Okay, I mean, I fell back on the physiological reaction caused me to jerk back. I was on my back, but I had no idea what happened, and I didn't even know I'd been shot for about a minute afterwards. I had the shotgun in my right hand like this, and I'm trying to get up using my left arm to push myself up because the shooting was still going on. Bullets were still flying over my head. And I'm thinking, hey, I need to get into this, need to get into this action. And to say that I wasn't normal at that point in time because, my physiological um, state after I got hit, my body kind of went into a different mode. It went to a survival mode. I mean, I got tunnel vision. My hearing was lost. And I was just like walking in slow motion or moving in slow motion. It was just kind of strange. But it wasn't until about a minute after I was shot, I'm thinking, why is my left arm not working? And I'm scanning for threats. I'm looking up because I'm on my back. And I had to rip my eyes off the thread points to look down at my arm to see what's going on here. It wasn't until I looked and made a visual inspection of my body that I realized that I had been shot. Now, at that point, you're apprehensive and you're fearful. I'm being honest with the audience here. And when I saw that I'd been shot and I saw that my arm had practically been ripped off my body, I went into terror. I was terrified. Okay. But I had to maintain the discipline. Okay. The discipline, state of mind, thinking, hey, okay, it's bad. You're still alive. You're still breathing. You feel no pain. And I'm looking at it. At the time, I had a lot of first aid classes in the military and in the FBI. I'm looking at it. I'm assessing. I'm thinking, hey, this is survivable. Okay. You have several minutes before you again, it's all up here. Okay. I said to myself, I have several minutes before I get to a point where it becomes a threat. So I just ignored it. I mean, again, there's no pain. So, and I focused on the gunfight itself, looking for threats. And then I realized, I tell people it gets better. I realized I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. I'm thinking, what the heck is that? I looked up and I saw red spray spraying up, past my feet. I'm thinking, what the heck is that? And I looked up and I'm thinking, oh my God, it's blood. So I had taken a second hit right here across the temple area this way. Luckily it didn't, break my head, but it just went underneath the skin, severed the temporal artery, and kind of kept going. So I'm thinking, okay, I've got arterial bleeding, so I put my hand up like this, thinking, okay. And unbeknownst to me, when I was doing this, I was compressing the wound, and the flap of skin that was there pressed on the artery, and it prevented it from squirting blood out. It still bled, but it wasn't squirting. So I totally ignored that. I mean, I wasn't fearful at that point in time because I was trying to survive and thinking, hey, this is all survivable. I mean, I don't feel it. I don't feel any pain at all, So, so I just concentrated on surviving, because I tell people, there were still bullets flying over my head, So it was pretty intense.
Ed Morales has just been shot twice, his left arm nearly destroyed, arterial bleeding from his head, and he's lying on the ground with bullets still flying overhead. But in that moment of sheer terror, his training and mindset kicked in. This is survivable, he told himself. This is survivable. But how do you fight back with one useless arm against two highly trained, heavily armed killers who are still shooting? How do you end a gunfight when you're bleeding out and losing consciousness? Join us for part 2 of Ed Morales' incredible story. We'll hear how one FBI agent's ingenuity, determination, and sheer will to survive led to one of the most remarkable acts of heroism in law enforcement history. This is Heroes Behind the Badge, brought to you by Citizens Behind the Badge. I'm Dennis Collins, along with Craig Floyd and Bill Erfurth. Don't forget, subscribe, like, and follow, so you'll be the first to be notified the moment Part 2 drops. Believe me, you won't want to miss how this incredible story ends.